Okay, so here I am at the end of the sleeve, and all I need to do is tie a little knot. I'm just going to kind of tie it through both these. It doesn't need to be like Fort Knox here, but I mean, you don't want the yarn to come apart, but it's not like a really high impact area. All right, now since I already have the needle on, I'm going to be good, and I'm going to sew my end in, because that would be pretty crazy not to. Okay, and then I'm just going to buried in the middle of this kind of arch here. Okay. There we go. Now we have an arm. Okay, flip it. Right way out. Why did I do it like that? That was really weird. Okay. There we go. So always making sure that everything looks all right before you move on to the next step. It's looking good. Kind of reminds me of a Big Lebowski sweater with this the way I've done the ribbing on the collar here, but that's cool. I like that movie. All right, now let's add to this here sleeve, make it longer, because it is not long enough unless you want a 3/4 length sleeve, in which case skip ahead, but I do not, so I will not. I've done that for my daughter. A lot of times it just doesn't look right. It looks like you forgot to finish the sweater. Okay, so I'm going to start in the underside of the arm because that's where it's least noticeable. Going to get my lightest yarn because I'm kind of just doing the pattern of, like, you know, light, medium, dark, light, medium, dark. So it's dark, so now it's light. Okay, so let's just start here. And same as always, just chaining 3. And then doing my clusters. And we're gonna go all the way around. Okay, so here I've come up, and now here I am at the top of the shoulder where it's sewn together. And I'm gonna do a cluster right before where I have it sewn together and one right after. So one right before and then just right after. And keep on going around. And one more, and I'm gonna double check. I'm gonna count because I want to make sure that I have the same number of clusters on each sleeve, or else they will not be even, and that looks awful. That you will notice. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And I had 12 on here. So perfect. Okay. As long as it's even, it's gonna look great. Okay. Now, I'm going to chain 3 and turn. Now, for this next row, we're going to decrease because we just kind of added a stitch up here at the top, and I want the sleeve to kind of narrow a little bit, narrow it down a little bit. So the way that I like to do that with granny squares is I'm going to do my regular chain 3 and then 1 double crochet and then move on. Go all the way around and pause the video, and I'll meet you when you come all the way back around. Okay, so here I've gone all the way around. All I have left is this one last one to do. Now for this last one, I'm only gonna do 2 again. So every other one has been normal, just regular, but the first one and the last one are gonna each just have 2. And then I'm going to join them. And I'm switching colors, so I'm gonna chain 1, cut it off. Okay. Now, we're going to grab the medium color, this peachy color. I don't usually go for peach, but I think this is kind of cute. All right. I think my son will look good in it. I like a man who wears pink. All right, so I'm going to join just to one side of this wackadoo little 2 and 2 granny situation I did here. And we are going to start back out like normal. So 3 chains, tuck that knot back there. You don't want to be able to feel it. All right, and just regular. Going all the way around until we get just to the end. I'll meet you there. Everything is normal this row so far, just like usual. Our 3 clusters going around. All right, so pause it, finish. These sleeves go fast, so you won't be paused for very long. And I'll meet you right before this wackadoo one, and I'll show you how to finish out this row. Okay, so I've gone all the way around. Now here I am at this kind of wackadoodle 2 and 2 grannies. Now I'm just gonna treat that like it's 1, and I'm gonna join. So I've done the one right before it, make sure you can see, and then I've got these 2 wackadoo ones, and I am just going to join as if those 2 smaller ones are actually just 1. And we're gonna chain 3 and turn and keep going just like regular. Doing another row of this, and then I'll switch colors and do 1 more row of the dark, and then I'll meet you there. So do another row here, and then another row of the dark. Now, I actually should mention, there is a method to my madness with the sleeve length. So I will post in the description what your sleeve lengths should be for different ages. So mine is 22-ish centimeters. That's gonna work for my kid, but again, pulling out my trusty sweater that fits him pretty good, and I just made it that same length. But I will put in there in the description the lengths for different sleeve lengths for different ages, in case you don't have a piece of clothing from the kid that you're making it for, or adult. You can make this for grown-ups. I keep saying it's for kids, but grown-ups would go nuts for this kind of thing too. You want to just kind of figure out how many rows you're going to need of your colors here to make the length you want. Super briefly show you how I do that. Oh my God, I've got too much stuff. Too many things. All right, so you line up the pits, the armpits, and I can see, I should have done this before. Okay, that from where I ended here with the dark color, I've got about that much I want to do. So you just take your fingers and you hold it up and you see about how many rows you're going to need. So to make that length, I would need 1, 2, 3, 1. Oh my God, my brain. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rows. Now, I know I want to do some ribbing, so I ended up doing just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows of the granny clusters, and then made up the rest of it in the ribbing. So I chose, based on knowing I needed about 6 rows to make my length, I decided to do 2 of each. If you need to make it significantly longer or shorter, all you would do is do less or more. You could do 3 or 1 or however many of each to get it to the length you need. If you are making a teeny tiny baby one and you don't need to add any rows to get to the length you need, which I would be surprised, but stranger things have happened, you can skip all this mishigas and meet me at the very end of what I'm about to finish here. And I'm going to show you how to cinch it in just a little bit so that it's got that sleeve look. Looks like a sleeve, or it's not just like a flapping thing. It's really easy to do. I'll show you exactly how to do that. So I need to do, beating a dead horse here, 1 more row of the medium color and 1 more row of the dark color to get to the point where I am going to start making it a little bit smaller. So let me do that, and you do the same, whatever you do you, whatever you're doing, and pause it, and then I will see you at that point. Okay, so here I am at the end. All right, I'm gonna join at the top of that 3rd chain. Oh my God, I'm so bad at that sometimes. Don't know why it's such a struggle for me. It seems like, I think I'm just too tight when I'm chaining. Jeez Louise. Talk about. Okay, so I'm gonna chain 3 and turn as always. Now, I'm only gonna do 2 per cluster this time in this row. So I've got my chain 3, and I'm gonna do then 1 double crochet and move on. So just 2 in each, and that's gonna cinch it in a good bit. I think you'd be surprised how much it does, but it's not. It doesn't look like balloon sleeve, right? So it almost kind of looks like a V-stitch, almost, if you're familiar with that. So do that all the way around, and if you wanted to be good, you would count your stitches as you go, because we need to make sure that it's going to match this one. If this is the first one you're doing, then you can just count them just so that you know. But since I'm making my 2nd sleeve now, I need to make sure that I'm going to have the same number of stitches around. And because I was good, I wrote it down earlier, it's 22 stitches around the sleeve. So it really should, I don't know how it wouldn't be because I've got 11 spaces and each is going to have 2 stitches, but just in case, I'm going to count as I go and I'll meet you at the very end. Okay, so I have gone all the way around with just 2 per granny cluster. My last one here, and I'm going to join here. Now, I'm going to do a row of single crochet all the way around, just sort of for good measure and just so that I have sort of a really stable base to do the ribbing for the sleeves, because the sleeves are going to get a lot more sort of pull and push and, you know, grabbing on things, as opposed to the bottom where we just sort of did the ribbing right into the top of our granny clusters. But on the sleeves, I like to do a row of single crochet just so there's like a nice solid foundation for the sleeve ribbing. Especially for kids' clothing, it's best to kind of have like a reinforced sleeve situation. All right, so that's super, super simple. But again, just making sure if this is your second sleeve, that it matches the first sleeve. If it's your first sleeve, counting how many stitches around and writing it down. You'll be happy you did later. All right, so just all the way around. And I will meet you at the very end. Okay, so I have single crocheted all the way around, and I'm going to join with a slip knot into my first one. If that is something that you struggle with, like knowing which one was the first one, use a stitch marker. Sometimes it gets tricky. I do get that. All right, now I'm switching to my smaller hook. If you don't have one, just stick with the one that you've got, but I think that it does give a nicer look to have it a little bit more tight with the smaller hook. Now, for this one, I did 90% for sure 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4. So we're gonna chain 4. Again, this is why you gotta write stuff down. You think you're gonna remember, and then you don't. All right, and then 1 extra. So for me, I'm doing 4 and 1 extra. If you need your sleeve to be a little bit longer, a little bit shorter, you can do however many you want. I wouldn't do too many less than 4. It starts to look kind of funky, but I think 4 is a nice number. All right, and we're gonna do just the exact same thing that we did down here on this ribbing, just around. So I have chained 4 plus 1 for turning. So I'm going to single crochet all the way down, 2, 3, 4. Now, here's my sleeve. Got this dangling little dingle dangle here. So I am going to do a slip knot into the next stitch, and then a slip knot into the one after that. So 2 slip stitches. Did I say slip knot? Slip stitch. Okay, and then turn my work, and you can kind of just line it up and see 1, 2 of my slip stitches. So I'm going to, in the back loop only, single crochet up these 4 stitches here. And again, I am going to go through both loops here in the one at the very end. Okay, chain 1 and turn. Okay, again, just like with the one down below, into both loops for that first, and then back loops for everything else. Counting again if it helps you, so that's 3 stitches and 4, and then again slip stitching into the next 2, and turning. Okay, skipping those slip stitches and going right in. Okay, and you're going to do that all the way around yet again. If you don't like this this way of doing it, all you would do is just like with the bottom ribbing, you would do, I'm not going to make a sample because that's crazy. You would do double crochets all the way around for the first row, and then start your front post and back post double crochets, just going all the way around. Again, it's going to look best if it's an odd number and not an even number, but it doesn't really matter. It'll just be, 2 front posts next to each other, so that won't look perfect. But if you can make it an odd number, you can always just add an extra single crochet or subtract a single crochet when you're going around with the single crochets to make it odd, so that it looks perfect. But if you don't do that, it's going to be okay. It's all going to be fine. All right, so I'm going to go around and around and around and meet you at the very end. All right, so I have the sleeve finished, the ribbing done. Now we need to do the front. You can see I've put the pocket on this side. Actually, I kind of went ahead and did this so that I had something to show you for when we're doing the other pocket for the other side. But there's a little Bluey pocket, and looks like Bluey, the little nose. So we are going to start with making the front of it, the kind of pretty little ribbing here at the front. Now, you have a couple options. You can keep it really, really simple and just do some rows of single crochet. That looks just fine. You can do ribbing the same way we did here at the bottom, but just all on the inside. That's a nice look too. You could just do 1 row of single crochet and call it done, or even row of double crochet. But what I did is, it's called the camel stitch. It creates this kind of nice flat woven kind of almost knit look. And I think that that's really, really nice for collars and kind of this kind of sweaters front. So I will show you how I do that. Again, this is of course optional. All of it's optional. You don't have to do any of this. But I think it's a nice look, and it could be something fun and interesting to learn. But if you watch this and think, ooh, that's too much, that's not what I'm into, you can just do a row of double crochet and call it done. All right, so we are going to join here to the very bottom, and we're going to do 62 stitches, because that's what we wrote down before, all across the front and all the way to the top back here. So sort of like this is where the collar is going to come up and around to the back and meet in the back. That is going to be 62 stitches, because that's what we had for the blue, so we need it to match for the orange. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, and we're going to do the same as we did for the back, where it's going to be 2 single crochets between each of these. I'm going to stop myself when I finish this portion going up this way, and I'm going to count how many stitches I've got and then count how many stitches I have left and make sure that I'm on the right track, because if I realize that I need to plus or minus 1 or 2 from where I'm kind of finding spots to do a single crochet, the time to do it isn't here to go back and redo it, rather than when you're all the way done. So go ahead and do that and meet me when you're finished. Okay, so I have done my single crochets all the way around, just making it look nice and neat. That is mostly just so that things look kind of nice here through where we're kind of having to find our spots. Just kind of evens everything out, makes it look nice. So we're going to do the camel stitch here. And what we're going to do is you're going to begin by bringing your medium color, or whatever color you'd like. You can do the ribbing in any pattern, but I wanted to kind of bring these lighter blues to the front again. So go to the very beginning here, looking at the work at the bottom here of the ribbing. And we're going to do half double crochets. So that is yarning over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, pull through all 3. And again, trying to get those tails hidden as best you can. It's that much less sewing to do later. All 3. You've probably done half double crochet before, so I won't really go over it, but if you haven't, I used to hate it. It used to be one of my least favorite stitches, but it's kind of fun actually, once you get the hang of it. And try to be a little bit loose with your stitches. Don't go super, super tight. Keep things a little bit looser. That will help you later, because we are going to be putting our hook for the next row into spots where our hook doesn't normally go. Okay, so keep going and I'll meet you at the end. Okay, so I've got the medium color, a half double crochet row all the way up and around, and I am going to chain 2 and turn. So now we're on the wrong side. All right, so we are going to be working in to what's called the 3rd loop. Let me show you a little bit easier. So we have the front loop, the back loop, and then if you turn it on its side, there's this bar right here. That is the 3rd loop. There are other stitches that work into that, but so it is just this little bar right here on each stitch. So that is where we're going to be working our next row of half double crochets into. It is fiddly at first. It's going to feel kind of wrong at first, but what that does is when we work into that back bar, it kind of pushes the V of the crochet stitch on its side. So it'll kind of push everything onto its side. So you get this kind of fun where you can see the V of the crochet really, really well. So it just kind of turns it. All right, so let's get started. And again, if this is too much, you can skip it. 100% not necessary, but I think that it's the little touches for a sweater like this. It's such a simple construction to do the granny squares. Once you start getting good at this kind of sweater, you can knock them out really, really quickly. But I find that when you add little fun details, it just makes it a little bit more special. All right, so we're gonna yarn over, insert our hook into that 3rd loop, pull up a chain, And there we go. Now it's kind of only hard at first because your work will start kind of tilting the way you need it to. Right? See, like it's already kind of like presenting itself the correct spot. It's just tricky to at first make sure you're not going into the top V and that you're just going into this back bar third loop. But as you can see on my work, as I'm going, it is kind of turning itself so that that's the one that's visible. So let me just do a couple more. For this, I would recommend counting your stitches as you go, just because it's a little bit more easy to miss a stitch, drop a stitch, make a mistake somewhere, especially if it's your first time doing it. I will link, there's a really good tutorial on YouTube. I will link to it in the description, just so you can see like a video that's just dedicated to this, if it's something you wanted to do. All right, so I'm gonna keep going, but let me just show you that kind of already flips that down, that V. All right, so keep going and I'll meet you at the end. Okay, so I have done that entire row of the half double crochets into that back loop there. Now you can see I have laid out some buttons. I want buttons on mine. This kind of sweater doesn't really need buttons necessarily, but I just think it would be cute, and since it's for a kid, I think it's nice to have the option to button it up for if it's chilly or if you just want to make sure it doesn't fall off of them. So I have taken stitch markers and I have just kind of fiddled around and played with it until the buttons are kind of how evenly spaced as I want. I don't want them to go all the way up to the neck because nobody's gonna button it all the way up there. That's kind of weird. But kind of like an old man cardigan kind of vibe, a little bit lower, kind of this bottom, 2/3, 3/4 of the sweater. So I've got these cute little buttons, and I think they match the Bluey side and the bingo side pretty well. So I'm going to use those. But so I have taken stitch markers and marked. The most important thing with the buttons is just that it's even looking. So mine, it ended up being every 8 stitches. So every 8th stitch from the bottom up, I put one. But for yours, it might look better or worse, or at, smaller distance or greater distance. But for this size button, I think that'll be nice. All right, now, so that brings us to the next row. This one's the tricky one, I think. I think that back bump on the other one is kind of the easier one to work into. But so I'm actually going to change my yarn color to the lightest color now. Just like on this one, I'm gonna go from the dark medium to light. So I've done 2 rows of this. So we're halfway done this part. Way more than halfway done the sweater. All right, so then we're gonna turn our work so the right side is facing us again. And I'm going to bring my hoop here and get my hook, not my hoop. All right, do a slip knot. Okay. Now, so this is where it's a little bit tricky. I'm gonna chain 2. And I actually find it's easier to turn the work to do this. Now, what we're gonna do is we are gonna just do a kind of a regular half double crochet here at the bottom, just for stability. And we're gonna turn our work over because it's a little bit easier to do it if you're turned on this side, which is kind of counterintuitive, but we're gonna yarn over, and the back bump of this side, use my scissors to point it out maybe, is this guy right here. This. So it's still kind of that horizontal bar, right? So with the crochet stitches, it's kind of horizontal, but it's, if there's a V here, it's this one right here we're working into. So it's actually, I think, a little bit easier to do this row from the back rather than trying to kind of like hope you can see it from that, you know, while you're working on the right side. So just kind of flip it over and yarn over. You might need to use your fingernail to kind of pull it where you want it. And again, count your stitches for this one, because this one, it's easy to get kind of mixed up. Okay. So yarn over. Right into here. So I said to do it kind of looser, just because if you crochet too tight, it's gonna be difficult. But see, now that's flipping this row the way we want it. Now when I get to my stitch markers, let me go to my stitch marker for, we're actually doing the buttonholes right now in this stitch, in this row. So this is the stitch that my stitch marker is coming out of. So I'm just gonna chain one and skip. Is that? No, hang on. I messed up. My bad. Okay. So I'm coming up to my stitch marker very, very soon here. So I'm going to do one last stitch into that back loop. There, the back bar. Now here is the stitch that my stitch marker is in, this one right here. So I'm going to skip that. So I'm going to chain one and I'm going to skip that, and I'm going to go straight into, skip that one, go into the next one. And then I'm going to check and make sure, I'm going to do one more stitch, and then I'm going to check and make sure my button is going to fit through that. So let me do one more, just so it's really like stable. I kind of have a genuine idea of what I'm working with. All right, let me stop there for a second. And then I just take one of my buttons and I make sure I can pop it through, and it's not going to be too loose. It's going to be, I think, just about perfect. A little bit looser than I typically like it to be, but what are you going to do? It's going to be fine. I can't do less than one skip stitch. So it's going to be just fine. Now, I've got, my hands are so dry, my yarn sticks to it. All right, so we're going to yarn over, keep going, just like that. To that back one. Like I said, it's really fiddly at first. So it's looking good. Yeah. And just keep going until you get to the very end. And then the next row is a little bit easier. It's the same as the row we just did before. So if you want to just keep cruising and don't want to have to wait for me, that's what I'm going to do next. I'll show one more time how to do the last row of this, and then we are done that part. All I'll show you how to do is make the pocket. If you want to do a pocket, I'm not sold on the pocket, actually, if I'm being honest. But I do think it's cute. It's just a little bit more kitschy than I I typically do, but it's for a kid, it's fun. So I'll show you how I make that. And then all we have left to do is sew up the back. So let me finish this row, and then I'll show you one more time how to do the last row of this ribbing on the front, and then we'll be almost done. Okay, so I've made it all the way up the row with this beige color, and I skipped all these spots for my buttonholes. All right, now, so you've come to the end of the row, chain 2, and turn. And now this one I think is the easier of the two sides. So we've got our top loops, and then we just turn it to its side, and we've got the back loops, third loops. All right, so then you're just going to work into each one of those all the way down. And if you did do buttonholes, when you get to the spots where it's the chain 1, you're just gonna have to do a half double crochet into those spots, just a regular half double crochet, and then keep going with the third loop for the rest of it. It'll look a little tiny bit wonky, but you really won't notice it so much because the button is going to be covering it, and it is what it is. All right, so keep going, and I will meet you at the very end. Okay, so got that side done. This stitch kind of does have a tendency to want to curl in, but we'll do some blocking after we're all done here. Blocking is when you, for acrylic yarn, the best way to do it is to use a steam iron. If you're using a natural fiber like cotton or wool, you soak it in a bowl or a basin of water for about a half hour or so, and then you squeeze it out and lay it out flat. So then after we steam it, we'll lay it out flat and kind of stretch it to how exactly we want it to lay. But the steaming with acrylic yarn just really kind of like relaxes the fibers, and it actually loosens them a bit, and you'll see how it goes from being kind of this, let me zoom out a little bit, this kind of stiff fabric, it becomes a lot more pliable and loose and more garment drapey. So now that that's done, that was the hard part. Now we're in easy stuff here. So we are going to make a bingo looking pocket. We've already got Bluey, and so we'll do a bingo pocket for the blue side. I thought it'd be cute if you did it kind of alternating, the Bluey on the bingo and the bingo on the Bluey side. So let's get cracking on that. So it's surprisingly easy to do these. I've used actually an eye from stuffed animals, but you can also just make a little black center with some yarn. I'll show you how to do that too in case you don't have eyes, because these are kind of bigger eyes. I thought it was cute though with a little shiny nose. I liked the way that looked better than a yarn nose. So we're gonna start for bingo using my lightest tan color. So I was looking at pictures of Bluey, and I was originally intending to do the lightest color for the center, and then kind of medium here and dark here. But looking at pictures of her, she has distinctly a brownish nose. It's darker than her sister Bingo. So I actually had this color left over from another project. So where I was actually made a costume for my daughter to be an otter. She was an otter one year for Halloween, so I made her an otter costume, and I had this left over, and I thought that looked good enough rather than go out and buy a whole yarn. But so you will need, if you want to do this, to find kind of a darker beige color for Bluey's nose. But let me show you how to make Bingo, and then you can just replicate it for Bluey. if you want to do this. So it's going to be a lot more traditional of a granny square. So we're going to again start with the magic ring, 2 fingers, make the X, and then I'm actually going to use a smaller hook. So to confuse, I'm going to use a 5mm hook for this, which is the recommended hook for this kind of yarn, because I want this to be a little tighter, a little bit stiffer for the pocket. Okay, so take the hook, go under the top right X, grab the top left, and a twisting and lifting motion, and then kind of pinch here just so that it stays together, and chain 3. And there you've got your magic loop with your first chains ready to go. So we're gonna then crochet around the tail. Okay, so it's just your basic garden variety granny square pattern. So the chain 3 counts as your first stitch, and we're going to do 3, including that chain 3, chain 2, and then another granny cluster, and chain 2, and do 2 more. So it's just a regular old square one, so there's 4 granny clusters because there's 4 sides to the square. Super simple. I'm just gonna finish this quickly, because then once you're finished this, it goes pretty quick. Okay, and then we're going to chain 2, because we're going to join to that first one. So we're going to tighten it up some more. Okay, and then joining to the top of that 3rd chain with a slip stitch. Okay, so that's the very start of the nose. Okay, so chain 3 again, and we're going to turn the work and do kind of just like regular. Just do a granny cluster, chain 2 because we're in a corner, and a granny cluster, and now because we are doing just kind of a garden variety granny square here, we're going to chain 1 and then do our next cluster here in the corner. That chain 1 space is just going to give us a little bit more space to work into with our next row of granny clusters. I find if you don't do that chain 1 space, especially something this small, and I'm using this size hook, it can kind of start to like poof out because it's just a little too tight in there. It needs a little bit of space to have somewhere to go into. So keep going all the way around, and I will meet you at the end. Okay, so I'm gonna make bingo. So I'm gonna use the bingo pocket 5mm hook, and I've got this kind of brownish, darker beige color. I played around a little bit with sort of color schemes and things with the pocket, and using the lightest color for her nose, it just looked really washed out, and I didn't love the way it looked. And I really like the look of having the darkest color of the sweater be sort of this border around. I think it makes it pop. So for bingo, that means I need to use the same color nose as I am for Bluey, and that's fine. So we're gonna start not with a slip knot. What am I doing? I am going to make a magic ring. Do an X over your fingers. Okay. Go under the top right. Pull up and twist the top left. I kind of grab it here with my fingers just to keep it stable, and do a chain 3. And there we have a magic ring ready to start working. And we're gonna do just a super, I'm gonna make it a little bit smaller, super traditional granny square, just with some color changes. But so if you're familiar with making granny squares, not granny hexagons, this will be really easy. Do a cluster, chain 2, a cluster, chain 2. This yarn really likes to split. Going on. Okay, chain 2 and one more cluster. Okay, and chain 2. Now, tighten that up. And join to the top of that 3rd chain. Now you're going to do one more row with this brown color, just like a regular row. So you're going to chain 3, turn, and then it's going to be, because this is the 2nd row and we started with 4, it's going to be 8 clusters by the time you're done. Okay, so keep going. Keep going, and in between the clusters on the sides, it's just gonna be a chain 1. In the body of the sweater, we didn't do any chains between the clusters in the, that weren't in corners, but for this, do a chain 1 between. And then chain 2 in the corners. So chain 2 in the corners, chain 1 between everything else. Chain 1. Son of a gun. Okay, and chain 1 and join. Okay, and chain and cut it off, because that's it for this color. Tighten up the center a little bit, make it look cuter. Okay, pull it out. All right, now put that away because we don't need that. We are going to grab our beige, our light light color here. Got a slip knot and into any corner, join. Chain 3 and make your corner. If you've come this far in the sweater, you're like a granny cluster pro. Okay, and chain 1, do another cluster in the chain 1 space, chain 1, and then a corner, and then we're going to switch colors. So here's the first cluster of the corner, chain 2, and then do the first 2 double crochets of the corner like normal. Okay, and then for the third one, start it, but don't finish it. Don't do that last yarn over and pull through, because we're switching to the peach color. Okay. So use a slip knot, put it on the hook, kind of holding this, the working yarn of the beige one down, and then just finish that double crochet with the peach. Chain 1 like you normally would, and then attempt to keep all these millions of tails out of your way, and do a cluster in the pink, and then a corner, chain 2, and then for this last cluster of the corner, you're going to not finish that third double crochet just like before. So stop there. Stop with 2 left on your hook. And cut off your beige wherever you had it. Make another slip knot. Okay, don't cut off your peach though. Keep it there, because we are just doing 1 cluster. So we're going to do what's called floating, which is when the yarn from the other color is going to just kind of get captured right there by this cluster right here, and it's just going to stay there, and then we'll pick it back up once we're done this one little cluster, because it's kind of crazy to cut off and do it just for one cluster. So you're going to kind of hide it. This is the back of my work, I've decided, so I'm just going to kind of, if you can see, I've just kind of trapped it. And when we sew it to the sweater, you will never know. Nobody's gonna flip it out and say, oh my God, you floated it. Okay, so then our third crochet, double crochet, we do not finish it, right? Bring that down, we bring up the peach. So just from where it was floating, bring it up and finish that double crochet with the peach, chain 1, and finish out the rest of the row with the peach. and then one more cluster for this row, and that's that row done. And then there's just one more, so it's really very, very fast. Okay, chain one and join to that third one. Man, I don't like doing that. Okay, and chain three and turn. All right, now we are gonna do, continuing with peach up until we get to the top of the forehead here, where we have these two lighter colors. Okay. Corner, so chain two. Okay, now for this last cluster of the corner, we're going to do the first two double crochets like normal, and the last one, don't finish it. Okay, take this beige yarn, cut it because it's still attached, but don't worry, we will sew in all these ends. Well, you will. I'm not doing it for you. I hate sewing in ends. All right, and finish that double crochet with the beige, chain one, and again, I'm gonna float this peach yarn across the back. It's just the 2 stitches, and it's just a pocket. Nobody's gonna know. They'll never know. Okay, chain one. Making sure that it is kind of like down, so you can't see it. Gosh. Okay, and don't finish that last third crochet, double crochet, and drop the beige. And pick up the peach and finish, and chain one, and then finish out this half. So we have to do a corner and then these spaces right here. So do the corner after the beige, see. Let me see what I've got going here, just so you can double check you're doing it right. Okay, and then 2 more clusters, and then we switch back to the beige, finish out the row, and then that's the main body of the granny square done. We'll just do the ears, which are super, super simple. So I didn't finish that third double crochet. Now my beige is God knows where in this tangled just cobweb. Cut it off wherever it was. Okay, and switch. It gets really, really frustrating having all these bits and bobs all over, but it is what it is. Double crochet, chain one, and then just finish the row all the way to here. And that's her face. I'm not gonna make you watch me do that. Okay, so I've come to the end. I'm gonna chain one, and then, like always, join. And then I'm gonna chain one and cut it off. Okay, so it looks a lot messier because it's got all these silly little tails everywhere, but this is Bingo's face with Bluey. So we need to do some ears for our little lady Bingo. So we are going to do a row across the top of single crochets. Oh, my peach is still attached somewhere. God only knows where. Okay. It really looks a million times better once you start sewing the ends in. Okay. So we're going to take that peach and we're going to go into a corner here. Okay. And we're going to start up a row. Now, we need to make sure we have the same on either side. So it's going to be 7 single crochets for the ears here at the bottom, 8, 9, 10, 11. Looks like I did. Okay. So 1, 2, just going straight across. In the chain one space, just do a single crochet into it, into the space itself, but then everywhere else just kind of single crocheting like you would normally single crochet right into the tops of those stitches. I think it's because it's cold in here. My hands are getting stiff. Turn the heat down because it's nighttime. I'm trying to save energy, especially because where I live, we are supposed to get a just like absolutely massive snowstorm this weekend. So I actually should probably turn up the heat. Get it nice and warm in here so that if the power goes out, we won't be totally out of luck. Okay. So I've got a row across of the peachy color. Okay, now we're going to chain one and turn. And for the ears, it is 7 stitches across per ear for mine. I think that looks best. So we are going to single crochet together first 2 stitches. It says 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, okay. I had to double check my math there in my mind. Okay, so these first 2 stitches, single crochet 2 together. So that means you go into the space, pull up a loop, stop, go into the next space, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3. Okay, and then single crochet in the next 4. Okay, and then single crochet 2 together here, just like that. Chain 1, turn, and repeat. So single crochet 2 together, single crochet 2. This might actually be too many. What did I do last time? We'll see how this looks. And then single crochet 2 together, chain 1, turn. Yeah, and then we're going to yarn over, pull up a loop. Sorry. We are going to do 4 double crochets brought together. Is that what I did? What did I do? My God, 1, 2, 3. Would have been really, really kind to myself to have remembered. No, I don't think that's what I did. Let's see. Hang on. No. Let's see where it gets me. That's right. Sorry. Okay. All right, we're gonna go again. Single crochet 2 together, pull through, single crochet 2 together, and pull through, chain 1, turn again, and we're gonna do one more time for the last one there. Gives us a cute little triangle. And then chain 2. And cut it off. Pull it out. Okay. Now, we're going to do the same thing again over here. And I want to make sure I'm doing it from the same direction so it looks identical, if that makes sense. So, I'm going to count 7 back from the end so that I know that my ears are going to be even. Okay. So bring on some new yarn. Okay. And then chain 1 and single crochet 2 together, and then single crochet until the last 2 stitches, am I missing one? Not sure. Chain 1, turn, single crochet 2 together, am I missing one? I am missing one. Dingus. Okay. This last stitch was trying to hide from me. Okay. Chain 1, turn, single crochet 2 together. Okay. Is that right? Yes. Okay. Man. And then single crochet 2. And then single crochet 2 together for the last 2. Chain 1. Turn. Okay. Single crochet 2 together the first 2 stitches. And then single crochet 2 together for those last 2. Chain 1, and then one last single crocheting together. Okay, and make sure it's even, make sure it looks okay. line it up with the other one, make sure it's similar enough, and then chain 2, cut it off. Okay, now, pretty cute. Just cutesy little ears. Why does that look smaller to me? I guess it doesn't. Okay, now we're gonna go all the way around with this darkest bingo color, the orange. Okay, so I recommend starting somewhere easy. Not on the ears, that's for sure. Because the ears we're gonna have to kind of wiggle our way through and make our own spaces for stitches. Okay. So what am I doing? Started a double crochet. No, single crochet all the way around. This is a bit of a clunker, this part of the video. I might re-record it. But just go all the way around, trying to capture some of your tails if you can as you're going. Because there's a lot of tails. Don't miss. There's always, the top of this is tricky. Just gotta make sure you're getting them all. It is a little bit tricky where the colors have changed and you've got this extra slip knot. But that's a big part of why you do this last row here. Also just because it makes it look cute and kind of more bingo-y, but it cleans it up quite a bit. I'm working on the wrong side. I like the way it looks. Single crochet, like it looks better one way or the other. And I think it looks better this way, so I'm going to turn my work actually. There we go. Tell you what. Might end up re-recording this, but we'll see. If anybody even watches this ever, and you find this extremely confusing because of how many times I have screwed it up, to be honest, and let me know, and I can re-record it. But who knows if anyone's even watching this, but mostly doing it because I make stuff and people tell me, how the heck did you make that? And I always wanted to do a video to record it, and this way I can just tell people, oh, this is how. Okay, so going all the way around. And I'll pick you back up when we get to the ears, just so I can kind of show you how you navigate around those. Okay, so I've made it to the ears. So on Bluey, it's 7 stitches up, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down. So let's try our best to make it as close to that. So you're just gonna kind of find anywhere you can wiggle your hook in, as close to the edge as you can. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't want to make that hole any bigger. 6. And then here, you just go into the top of that top chain there. You can see kind of this right here. Okay. And just take a look at it. Yeah, that's cute enough. It's gonna look a little bit, you know, homemade, because it is. All right. And then back down. Finding spaces wherever you can. And keep going all the way around until you've finished. Just make sure, if you can, the ears on each pocket are the same number of stitches up and down. If it's not the same from Bluey to Bingo, people aren't going to notice. It's like eyebrows, you know, they're sisters, not twins. But on the same pocket, make sure it's the same number up and down, and then up and down, because that you might notice it'll look like one's bigger. All right. Okay, so there we go. I've gone all the way around, and then I joined with a slip stitch, and I'll chain one and cut it off, and then begin the work of sewing in all these millions and millions of tails. But it's just a cute little, you know, it looks bingo-ish, right? So you want to kind of hold it up to the other one if you've made another one. Make sure they're similar enough, like no like glaring differences in sizes. But it's different yarns, so they might be a little bit different, but that's okay. Everything's gonna be okay. So there's that done. So all we have left for the sweater really is to sew the two backs together, and then to sew on the buttons and sew on the patches. But these you just sew on just like you sew anything on. Just you'll see a little bit on the inside of where you stitched it, but it's the inside of a sweater. Nobody's looking in there. Okay, so we zoom out a little bit. Okay, I have got one last thing to do here. So I like things to be nice and neat, as neat as possible. So we did a row of single crochet up the back, right? If you remember way back then, to kind of make this neater here. Now we have this. I don't love that that would like butt up against it and not be sewn really, really neatly and perfectly. So I am going to do one last row of single crochet up the whole back with the darkest color. I've done it here. You can see that, so I can do is I can count my stitches and make sure I have exactly as many as I have on both sides. So to cover this, it took me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stitches. So we'll have 68 total, because I have 62 from here to here. So add an extra 6. And I'm gonna just do that really, really quickly. Totally not a necessary step. I just feel like the back of the neck is actually kind of a visible spot on the sweater. And I just want it to look neat and tidy. And it takes just a minute. Like I said before, I think that these granny sweaters are kind of very homespun, but so the details make it look a little bit nicer. So for this final row of the single crochet at the back, just for where I have the ribbing, I'm gonna single crochet into both loops for the first one, and then back loops only, just for the ribbing. So it's just these 6 first stitches. And that'll just kind of keep the ribbing look going even as you've sewn it up the back. It'll have a little bit of a seam, but I figure why add to the seam. So I'm going to finish that and come back to you when I'm ready to sew. Okay, so I have my 2 pieces ready to go. On the blue one, I finished that last row of single crochet, and I am not going to do anything but make a really, really long tail. Let me zoom out a little bit again. Got a really, really long tail of the blue color. So I'm ready to sew them together using the blue. All right, so let's find ourselves. Let's orient ourselves here. Okay. So this is what we're sewing together. So we're going to put right sides together. Okay, so I've got the 2 right sides together. I'm going to get my needles. I'm going to use a pretty small one. They're all pretty big, but smaller so that I can really get in there. Okay, now I should have sewn all these tails in before I started sewing, but I didn't, so here we are. So I've got my long tail here. Thread the needle through, and I'm going to show you what we're going to work into. So line them up. Now they are right sides together. So we are going to, gosh, I hope you can see any of this. The blue is so hard to see on camera. We are going to go into the loop here, the outside and the outside on either side, making sure to always kind of keep it as lined up as humanly possible. Okay, so then the next stitch going into the outside one, and then the outside. And that is, hopefully, if we're doing it correctly, going to give it a really nice kind of flat look. And I like to do just a little bit and then kind of take a peek and make sure I'm happy with what I'm doing. This is not my strong suit at all, the sewing. So let's take a look what it's going to look like. Yeah, that's what I want. I want it to just kind of butt up against each other. So that's exactly what I want. So I'm doing it correctly. All right. So again, just the outside loop to the outside loop, straight across from each other. I think it's called the mattress stitch. I am not a sewing person, so don't quote me on that. And watch your tension and make sure you don't skip any. All right, and just keep going all the way down. I'll show you like maybe 1 or 2 more. Well, you can actually see any of it. So outside, make sure you're going into one that you haven't gone into already. And as you go, it does kind of like line itself up so that it's easier to see. Like they kind of, just like with the camo stitch, they kind of turn themselves the right way, the stitches. Okay? So keep going just like that. Okay, so once you come to the end, it will have a really, really nice kind of clean seam look to it like this if you sew it together the way that I did, where it's just like a real, like, you know, solid look. Okay, so then all I have left to do here is to make a knot. I kind of like to do a little bit extra. I go through kind of one more time into this one and under to here, because it's on the inside. You won't really see it, just to really make sure that the bottom is locked really good. And then you find a stitch, essentially any stitch, go under and tie a knot nice and tight, and then a double knot, and then you sew in the end. You just kind of sew that in real quick, just because you already have it on the needle. It'd be crazy not to. A little bit, and then I'm going to go over, just changing directions. I think the rule of thumb is like 3 direction changes is plenty to really lock it in. Sometimes for even like something that doesn't need to be super, super secure, 2 direction changes I think is plenty. All right, and then cut it off. All right. All I have left to do then is to do some blocking, of course, like I've been talking about, and sew on the other little pocket, which I have to sew in all my ends first. So let me go do that. And then when you sew on the pocket, God, I'm losing my voice. When you sew on the pocket, just make sure that it's even with the other side, best you possibly can. So it'll look like that. And then I'll put her little nose on. Real quick, let me show you, so quick. If you wanted to do a nose that isn't the amigurumi, however you say that, button eyes, you could make a super duper duper quick magic circle, just like always, using black yarn, obviously, but I've got the blue right here, but just use some black yarn, and then just do single crochet all around until it's the size you kind of want it to be. Let's see, what, 6, okay, maybe 5 actually. So just kind of pull it tight, and it makes just a little circle. So hopefully do it on top of not the blue. I have this brown paper down so that my white table isn't glaring, but so it would just make a little button nose. I should kind of do like that. And then just like any other, you just join to the first stitch. It's so hard to see this blue. In person, it's even tricky. I don't think the camera's picking much up at all, but just slip stitch to join, chain 1, cut it off, and then, you know, once you sew these ends in, you just trim it so you can actually see what it would look like. It would look like a little just button nose. Obviously the ends are still there. I haven't sewn them in, so it's going to make it be a little poofy, but you can make a little nose just like that and sew it on. That's actually pretty darn cute. don't think I'll do that though. I think I like the plastic button, but that's a really cute look too. I just did 5 single crochets around a magic circle, and it made that size. But you can play with it if you want bigger or smaller. Just do more or less single crochets. All right, so let me sew all these in. And go from there. But we're just about done.